Okay, so next, let's just do a few administration commands. We'll do password command. It's saying make a new password. Okay, so now the administrator account has a password. DF shows how much space the system is using. Disk free, here it says used and available. DU, disk usage, basically the same thing as DF, but just DU by itself, it lists each folder file by itself. And here I just thought I'd run a few commands just to show you there's many variations to this command. -S is just summarize. We can use the long version here. -H is for human readable. 196 megs. Disk usage all. You can see they all basically do the same thing with small variations. There's a DU man page on the Ubuntu website. That would be here. So here you can see DU is an estimate of file space usage. And there's many switches. Just depends on what items you want to see. Host name. Just returns the container ID number. Host name -I returns the IP address of the container. IP address, that would be covered in like a networking class. Uname just tells us we're using Linux. Uname -A just gives us more information. We can do a more on the host file. And it shows us the local IP address and the main IP address down here. We can install ping. Ping is how we check TCP settings. And then here we install Internet utilities. So I've already done this, so it was pretty quick. So now we can run ping on our local host. That's a good way to check to make sure your TCP settings are working. As long as you get some type of reply here, it's good to go. You can press Control-C to stop. Hold down the Control key and press the C key. We can ping the container address. And here again, as long as you get some type of response back, then you know it's working. Control C. We can do a more on the profile. And here it's showing us our profile for my account. So when I log in, this script runs. Okay, that's a pretty advanced script. That's not something you really need to understand now. I just wanted to show you the profile file. And you can always go in and change this too. Just the letter W will give you a summary of activity on a system. System load average, logged in users, and their processes. So let's do a W, and it shows us what's going on with the system. There's a env command. It shows us our environment settings. Of course, everything's important, but here it shows us our home folder. And here it shows us the path variables. Okay, so this path stuff, that's a pretty tricky topic to understand. But basically, when you run a command, it will look in the path to see if it can access these folders. Without having to specify the whole path name. Okay, so just to show you what I'm talking about, if I list the files in bin folder, and let's scroll up here a little bit. Here's the touch command that we used earlier. Okay. So when I run touch, I can say create a file with touch A, right? And it ran that program in the bin folder. Okay. If the bin folder was not in my path, I would have to specify the folder. I would have to go to root, go to bin, and then run touch and create a file B. I have to specify where the touch program is. Okay, but because it can look in the path and see if it can find that program, then I don't have to specify the path. Okay. We can show the path variable here. So this is separated by colons. So this is a path. This is another path. This is a path. See, there's multiple places that it will look for that file. Before it says, hey, I can't find it, you have to specify the folder. We can echo, which means we can print out the home variable, and it just shows I'm logged in as root, right? So it's showing me my home folder is the root folder. Here, I'll show you. ls, this root folder here, that would be my home folder. That's where I would store my files. See, I can cd into root, and I don't have any files there, but that would be my home folder. And then here, I just thought I'd make you aware of two advanced topics. IPtables would be a Linux firewall. So we can install it here. Of course, you should run the update first. So that installs the firewall. That stops hacking from getting into the system. Okay. There's other things you can do with the firewall, but that's the main idea. It stops attacks from getting in. And then there's an intrusion detection system called Tripwire. What Tripwire does is, if there's a hacker floating around your system, they got a username and password and they were able to log on, Tripwire will detect that there's an intrusion, and we can install it here. Okay. Next, we'll create a user. We'll use the command add user, and we'll create a user named Jim. So create a user and name him Jim. And then here, it's automatically asking me for a password for that user. And now it's asking me for some generic information on the person. Okay, so now we have a user Jim. We can log in as Jim. Just run the login command. Now it's asking me for the password. So now you can tell down here we're logged in as Jim. And you can see my home folder is in root, home folder, and then Jim folder. If I go who am I, it's telling me I'm Jim. I'm no longer root. I logged in as Jim. Okay. I can echo the home folder. It shows me my home folder here. And then if I want to get out of that account, I can just run exit. So that logged me out of the Jim account, and now I'm back as the root account. Okay, so before we can use sudo, we must install it. I've already done this, so it can tell I already have it installed. And then we'll log in as Jim. So we're going from the root account to the Jim account. Next, we're going to have Jim create a user. Sudo means to run the command as an administrator, and then add the user Jane. Password for Jim. Adding user Jane. Give her a password. Got to type it again. Now it's asking us, and now it's okay. So now we can log in as Jane. Let's do this first. We'll exit back to root, and then we'll log in as Jane. So now we're logged in to the Jane account. Just to show you that Jane cannot create an account, we'll say have Jane create the account Joe. And it says Jane is not in the sudo file. The incident will be reported. So she tried to create an account, and it will be logged that she tried to do something that she wasn't supposed to. We can add Jane, just to run through it again. We can add Jane to the sudo group. Now, when we log in as Jane, she can also create an account. So Jane will create the Joe account. Password for Jane. Okay, we'll exit, and then we'll log in as Joe. Okay, so Jane was able to create an account. Okay, so that's just a quick example of how to create a user on a Linux machine through the command line.